What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and heading into training camp Tuesday, things look really good for the Jets. Mason Taylor finally signed, so we have our full draft class all locked up. You have the big contracts that we just gave to Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, and the fact that everything has been in-house, if there is an issue, but just overall relatively quiet and peaceful and just football related, is blissful. So heading into training camp and kind of looking at what's going on with the roster, Zack, Rosenblatt, one of the more trusted names in terms of beat writers and such around the New York Jets, he put all of the current players into different buckets based on what he's seen over the course of OTAs and who he thinks will be making the 53-man roster. So you have your roster locks, you have your safe bets, you have your, I believe he refers to them as bubble players, and then you have your cut candidates, for example. And reading through, there's an interesting name that popped up in wide receiver Irvin Charles, aka the Wolf, right? I say interesting because we know that he's coming off of a torn ACL last year and pretty late last year, right? I think mid-December-ish. And we did sign him to an exclusive rights tender. So this new staff looked at him and said that this is a priority player for us, right? Someone that we feel like if returns healthy is going to be a huge boost to what we want to do as a team. And we know Aaron Glenn has been very vocal about his emphasis on making sure the special teams unit has what they need in order to succeed. So Irvin Charles is a guy that has made a lot of quiet noise, right? And I love the kind of oxymoron here, or the contradiction in it all, because special teams is a unit that really does get a lot of low fanfare, right? If it's not for kickoff or punt return touchdowns, the guys that are out there making huge stops, forcing turnovers and stuff, they don't get as much attention if it's not a critical moment in the game, right? Or something that's looked back on as being one of the key moments in the game. And he really has been a diamond in the rough, right? A guy that is still growing as an offensive player, but in terms of special teams itself and looking at who we used to have leading the face of that unit and now him kind of becoming that household name there is huge. And so you look at Zack Rosenblatt's comments, right? For one, he's one of only 9 players marked as a safe bet and one of only 2 wide receivers, the other one being Allen Lazard, who's just a more veteran seasoned player, obviously has played more offensive football than what you've gotten out of Irvin Charles. But his commentary said he'll likely start the season on the PUP list coming off ACL surgery, but he's a valuable piece on special teams when healthy. And even just that little bit of a line is really underselling how elite of a player that he's been, right? Versus the Seahawks. And this is one of the biggest just chef's kisses when it comes to giving a player his flowers on special teams. He drew triple coverage, and I don't think that was the only time over the course of the year, but it's one of the ones I've seen while digging stuff up, and the only one that really comes to mind right now. But triple coverage on a punt return, I believe it was, in order to make sure that he couldn't fly downfield and stop them early, right, or force a turnover or anything of that nature. And you really don't see that kind of commitment to one player, right? It is not ideal. That means you're immediately opening up a huge lanes for 2 other players to be able to go and try to make something happen. And they thought that risk was worth the reward for ensuring that they can stop Irvin Charles. And I think he still was able to go by and at least have a hand in making sure that it was a minimal impacted play, right? 90.3 PFF grade for special teams in 2023, 88.6 PFF grade in 2024 before his injury. So this is a guy that he could be your new Justin Hardy, right? He could be that player that is such a difference maker in special teams that he is worth a rosterable spot at one of the other positions, even though he doesn't get much play, right? I think he's had less than 2 targets over his 2 years since joining the New York Jets so far, and maybe under like 20 to 25 plays on offense, something of that nature. For what it's worth, though, I did highlight the fact that he is a developing prospect, right? And so there was moments in the OTAs last year where he had really, really strong days. I'm talking, making plays in double coverage, multiple touchdowns, huge possession receiver, high pointing the ball. So he's had days to let you know against, by the way, guys like JBC when they were kind of at their heights over the course of OTA, and Stiggers, and even at some point Reed, and being able to beat Sauce Gardner deep. So he's doing it against a myriad of players. There's obviously something to him, and him coming from Penn State says a lot about his athletic profile in and of itself. But I'm super excited to see him with Chris Banjo. And ultimately, we can't forget, he's also, when he's finally able to go back in and start competing and working out and stuff, he's going to be pushed by a lot of players that we brought in. Again, special teams being a huge focal point. Jalen Simpson, a strong special teams player that we brought over from the Colts, I believe it was. You have Chris Boyd, who I think we picked up from the Vikings. And then just the myriad of other gunners and such that we brought in. You look at another name who I'll chat about in a different video, Jamarcus Weston, for example, who's another freak of nature. And so if you have someone with a ridiculous athletic profile and they can't shine necessarily at their given position, right? Offense, defense, whatever that is, there's a legitimate chance that you see them shine on special teams where it's literally hustle, effort plays, athletic freaks of, athletic displays of freakiness. None of that sounded good, but ultimately what I'm trying to say is it's the perfect stage for you to show. If you're a burner, if you're a guy with elite agility, acceleration, if you're someone that can break every bone in the body when you make contact with the other player, all of that is on display, right? One of the most deadly or one of the most dangerous plays in football overall is playing special teams, right? And you hear all of the players talk about the different mindset that you see out of guys that have really done well in special teams over the year in regards to not being a returner specifically. But with that said, this is pretty big news, right? Because you look at the wide receiver room, and aside from Garrett Wilson, again, everything's up in the air. And how I do think my initial pecking order to me would be Garrett Wilson. Then you're talking about Josh Reynolds being wide receiver 2. I would say Allen Lazard, just because of the resume, is probably penciled in as 3. And then you have Tyler Johnson behind him, the other veteran. And then in some order, you're going to have probably Arian Smith as your 5, Irv Charles at your 6, which let's just bump him into 7, assuming we keep 7 because he's recovering. 6 would be someone like your Malachi Corley or someone of that ilk, right? So to see that he would be a safe bet to assume he makes a 53-man roster is pretty crazy, because he probably won't even be healthy at the start of the season, let alone trying to get reps in during training camp. But we'll see what happens. Let me know what you guys think, though. I think when he returns and you don't see a step back in terms of that athleticism and stuff, he's going to get right back to doing what he was before. So really excited for the man. I'm definitely hoping the recovery and stuff goes well, and ideally ahead of schedule, and seeing if he can also make some noise in the wide receiver room, right? I get a little glowing warmth of happiness when I see he gets a chance to hit the field and hopefully make a couple plays here or there. But let me know what you guys think. Irvin Charles, potentially a roster lock, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.